Hey everyone, welcome back to Burns Reviews. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe and as well check out our Patreon, where if you want to help support the channel, I'll leave a link for that right down below, where we have additional content that you can't find here, as well as additional perks such as polling, where you can vote on upcoming videos. Again, I'll leave it down here. Without any further ado, let's talk about the ending of The Wolf of Snow Hollow. The story of the wolf. So if you're like me watching this movie for the first time, you might be going, wait, who is this guy? Well, that's Paul Carnery, as in carnivore. He was the owner of the Airbnb where the first couple stayed in the beginning of the film. Oh yeah, fun Easter egg. If you're wondering why Jimmy couldn't find a bottle opener, a corkscrew, or a knife, it's because the killer removed all sharp objects that could be used as a weapon before they got there. It's super sketchy to have an empty knife block with no knives, but I think it just adds to how stupid the cops were in this town not to notice.
You're a bad police officer. You should have pursued computer science because you are not good at this.
We first see him at the crime scene complaining that he wants his phone back and that his wife is going to kill him.
What am I gonna have to do? Rent this place out as a haunted house? My wife's gonna fucking kill me.
The next time we see him is when he's dressed as the wolf and he kills Hannah, the snowboarder instructor. Fun fact number 2. The reason he was able to cut her arm off was because he wore razor blade gloves. Unfortunately, any shot of the razor gloves were not able to make it into the final shot of the film. Which honestly, in my opinion, was for the best. It would have given way too much away way too early in the film. Fun fact number 3. We can see Paul in the background in pretty much every funeral scene that he's at. Here at Hannah's funeral, he's a little blurry, but he's there. If you look closely, you can find it.
Find it! Find it!
Then we see him at the restaurant, or at very least hear him at the restaurant when he's talking to Liz and her daughter Miley.
That blue car is nice, huh? Is your hair always that color?
Damn, he's tall. Liz is then seen talking to the police along with a montage of other citizens in town, and one of them is, wouldn't you guess it, Paul Carnery. And once again, he refers to his wife and how he has to call her.
I own a lot of properties, okay? You're not gonna pin this thing on me. Now, can someone let me call my fucking wife?
Later that night, Liz stops her car in the middle of the road when she sees a dead deer. Paul kills Liz and Miley, and once again you can see him sitting behind John at their funeral. Notice how he keeps getting closer and closer and more in focus.
Metaphor.
John decides to go to the library and try to do some research on the werewolves and taxidermy. However, fun fact number 4, if you look at the books on taxidermy, you'll notice that they were written by Paul Carnery himself. Next time we see Paul is when he attacks John's daughter Jenna and her boyfriend Brock. Fun fact about this scene, at the end of it, we can hear the noises in the distance. 2 clicks on the radio, 4 gunshots, and 1 howl from the wolf. The next scene we see is Officer Gutierrez stuffed into a garbage can. What I find so interesting about this scene is that all of these officers shown here, he was the first cop to get there after John, which is ironic because only 30 minutes earlier in the film, John was calling him a bad cop.
You're a bad police officer. You should have pursued computer science because you are not good at this.
I mean, yeah, he's clearly a terrible shot, but he was the first cop there after John. And I know what you're saying, maybe his location where he was staking out was the closest to John. That could be true, but it did seem like it took forever for the cops to even show up at this location. I mean, they all heard the same radio dispatch that John heard. Where were they? What's even worse is that if you turn the subtitles on, first you hear him drive past John, then you can hear Gutierrez radio for backup before going after the suspect. And since John was probably the closest cop there, it really should have been him to give him backup.
You're a bad police officer.
Here's another fun fact. John actually knocks one of his own teeth out. When we see him pull out a loose tooth, we assume that it was from the car accident. But if you watch the scene, before, when he's leaving the AA meeting, he actually punches himself in the face. Blink, and you'll miss it. Which brings us to the grand finale. The cops think that they got their bad guy. We'll come back to that later. And John goes to Paul's house to return the evidence from the first murder. It's at this point that Paul gives himself away in many different ways. Red flag number 1. Paul says that he does not have a wife.
Oh, I'm not married.
Earlier in the film, there are 2 occasions in which Paul says that he actually does have a wife.
This place out as a haunted house? My wife's gonna fucking kill me.
Now, can someone let me call my fucking wife?
Now, he's changing his story, saying that he's divorced, telling John the following.
I was once, but she couldn't hack it.
That's a really interesting way of putting it. Correct me if I'm wrong, but wouldn't you say, I couldn't hack it? I mean, saying that she couldn't hack it sounds very, odd. And then Paul asks this question.
And your daughter, she's doing fine?
What kind of question is that? That's like just as sketchy as the questions that he was asking when he was in the restaurant.
That blue car is nice, huh? Is your hair always that color?
And yeah, maybe there was something in the newspaper about John's daughter and how she was attacked.
Well, I mean, I hate to say there's not much to tell. Tribune did a pretty good job with their write-up.
However, I find that really unlikely. I think it's exactly right here at this moment when he stops talking about his daughter and starts sucking on his teeth that the light bulb finally goes off. When he walks outside and looks back at the sign, it looks just like the book that he was looking at in the library, only in reverse. Meanwhile, Officer Julia Robson figures out that Paul is the killer when PJ calls about the seam ripper that they left there. And if you're wondering how that could have tipped her off, a couple scenes earlier in the film, Julia could be seen putting away evidence. Part of that evidence was an old spool of sewing thread that didn't have a proper place in the evidence box, as well as the Photoshop pages that John made earlier at the library. And in one of those photocopies, you can very clearly see the very same seam ripper from the book that Paul Carnery wrote. And since she knew that John was dropping off evidence that day and that the suit was never recovered, she knew it was Paul and she had to get there. She really is the smartest cop in Snow Hollow. Anyway, the rest you know. John gets stabbed, Julia shows up, shoots Paul, and John shoots Paul several times in the face just like PJ asked him to.
Hey, officer, if you do find him, don't arrest him. Shoot him. Shoot him to the ground through his face.
In the final scene, John can be seen helping his daughter settling into her new dorm room, and he tells her that he left her something in the top drawer of her cabinet. What is it, you're asking? Well, it isn't condoms, she already has those. And it isn't the mace that he got her a few years earlier, we see that in the establishing shot. The only context that we have here is that we see John readjusting his belt upon leaving. Did he leave her a belt buckle? Her grandfather's belt? We do see him taking that out of evidence earlier in the film. Nope! It's Grandpa's gun. That's right, the girl is packing with a can of mace and a loaded revolver. Honestly, at this point, if anyone should be afraid, it's these frat boys talking about girls, not John or his daughter. She's packing. Some people also asked, then who's this other guy with the wolf tattoo? He's a nobody. He's a red herring in the investigation. Earlier in the film, the coroner said the body they found belonged to Helena Gaines. She was the body that the guy was trying to get rid of in the backyard by lighting it on fire. I read somewhere online that somebody thought that this guy might be Paul's partner, seeing that they found wolf bites on the actual victims, and this guy had a pet wolf in his little RV. But this is debunked for two reasons. First of all, earlier in the film, at the crime scene, Julia said that the teeth marks were bigger than a wolf and more like the size of a Kodiak bear. Second of all, there are absolutely no teeth marks or even that much blood on this body. Also, why would he light it on fire and try to destroy the evidence when all the other victims in the film were left for the cops to find? Now, this guy was just a drug addict. There's a scene going into the third act in the film in which Julia says to John, "This is a job, and it sucks often, but you're gonna lose a lot more than that if you don't start focusing on the important stuff." I think this guy is a cautionary tale for what John could become. You know, if drinking just wasn't enough for him anymore and he just lost his job and he turned to harder drugs, this could be him. I mean, how long would it be before he accidentally killed somebody else or even himself? That one scene where he crashes the car into a pillar, I mean, he's getting there, you know? In my opinion. What do you think? Comment down below. And I think that covers the three big questions of the film. There are several other ones, smaller questions like, how'd he know that he threw the beer bottle? Well, in my opinion, I think he knew by deduction. He knew that his daughter was 6 years old. He felt that the police in that town were incompetent. And the guy was kind of ballsy. I mean, he does that whole right in his face, right? I mean, I think it became pretty obvious. Granted, John took a shot in the dark, but man, he nailed it. And I think it was really cool to see John have a small win in a movie where he just keeps progressively losing as the story goes on. When asked what inspired Jim Cummings to write the story, he said that he had the ending first and from there he worked backwards. The story of the werewolf actually came later. Cummings was inspired heavily by the works of Alfred Hitchcock, but even more so by the great David Fincher. Even going as far as saying, what would this movie be like if it was Zodiac but a comedy? It's easy to see all the comparisons of Snow Hollow to the works of David Fincher. For example, in Seven, we follow a young and angry detective who sometimes acts before thinking, letting his emotions get the better of him. We also never see any of the murders happen, except for, of course, for the final murder, which is of the murderer himself, in which he shoots the murderer multiple times in the face. The montaging scenes are very similar to those seen in Fight Club. The scene in the kitchen in the movie Zodiac is very reminiscent in the ending of this movie, when Jake Gyllenhaal is in the kitchen and he realizes, wait a second, there are no basements in LA. and immediately has to get out of there. Hell, even the girl with the dragon tattoo feels very much like this movie. It's all right there. Personally, this film reminded me a lot of the movie Fargo and Silence of the Lambs, which I'm sure I'm willing to bet was also his aim in making this film. Cummings has a way of incorporating a lot of films you recognize while at the same time making sure the story feels very fresh and different. I think Jim Cummings is one of the more interesting directors working today. I haven't seen his first film yet, Thunder Road, mainly because much like this film, he plays a small town cop on the brink of a mental breakdown, and I didn't want to confuse the two films until I finished this essay. But I do look forward to checking it out, as well as his next full-length feature film, The Beta Test. Anyway, that's going to do it here today on Burns Reviews. Be sure to subscribe and ring that bell if you want videos just like this. We do have other Ending Explained videos right here. We have early movie reviews you can check out before the movie comes out. We have Blu-ray trips, and we also just launched a Patreon where you can vote on videos and check out audio commentaries. We just did one for The Gentleman because it's coming up on the 1-year anniversary, so be sure to check that out if you want to support the channel. And until next time, guys, I've been John. Be sure to comment down below with what you thought of the ending of Snow Hollow. Did we miss anything? Was there anything in this movie that you found in the background? Because I watched this movie about 4 times, and every time I watch it, I find something new. So comment down below. And as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Happy 2021. I hope this year turns the corner and things could be better for everybody. Wishing you all happiness, peace, joy. I know the world could be a little hectic right now, but it'll get better. It has to. Right? Until next time, guys, I've been John. Thank you for watching. This has been Burns Reviews. You've been burned, and we will see you next time.